The story begins with Kang Ha's arrival at Jooshin High, one of the most prestigious schools in South Korea, where the children of the country's most powerful and wealthy families attend. The school at first glance gives the impression of a closed club where power and money rule, and even among the chosen ones there is a hierarchy based on family status and personal connections. Kang Ha, who was given the opportunity to study here on a scholarship, feels like an outsider, but his goals go deeper than just education. He is determined to find out the truth about the mysterious death of his older brother, who also studied here. Rain. From his first moments at the school, Kang Ha is met with cold attitudes from his classmates, especially from the elite, who see him as just a poor young man not worthy of their attention. However, his ability to adapt and his calm, confident demeanor attract the attention of several key figures in the school, including Jeong, Jae-i, one of the most influential students, and Ryan, the heir to a powerful corporation who is used to keeping everyone in check. Jeong Jae-i is a typical member of the elite, but her inner world doesn't match the ideal picture seen by those around her. Despite her wealth and privilege, she feels like a prisoner of her parents' expectations and societal pressures. When she meets Kang Ha, she sees something real in him, something different from the falseness and hypocrisy that surrounds her at school. But she's afraid to show her true self, as it might ruin the fragile reputation she's trying to maintain. Meanwhile, Ryan, who is used to being the undisputed leader among his peers, immediately feels threatened by Kang Ha. He instinctively senses that the newly arrived student is not as simple as he seems. Ryan enjoys his influence and power, and any encroachment on his leadership makes him aggressive. He is the first to test Kang Ha, putting him to the test to see how dangerous he is to the existing order. The school has an informal hierarchy that controls everything from social interactions to academic success. Members of the elite enjoy privileges unavailable to the rest of the student body, and use their position to suppress those lower down the social ladder. Kang Ha quickly realizes that breaking into this system won't be easy, but he has no intention of backing down. He begins to search for answers, suspecting that his brother's death was not an accident, but connected to something much darker. The plot escalates when Kang Ha accidentally finds an old photo of his brother with a group of students from the school. In the photo, he recognizes several famous people who now hold important positions in society, and it makes him wonder how deeply rooted this story is in the world of the elite. However, as he tries to learn more, doors begin to close in front of him, and his classmates, who feel threatened, begin to weave plots against him. Young Jae-i finds herself caught up in a complex game as she tries to figure out whose side she is on. Her inner conflict between her duty to her family and her sympathy for Kang Ha becomes more and more apparent, but she is not yet ready to make a decision. Ryan, on the other hand, is not going to sit idly by. He uses his influence and wealth to stop Kang Ha from moving forward in his quest. After a party at school where Kang Ha shows his resilience in the face of humiliation, he is noticed not only by his classmates but also by his teachers. However, this doesn't earn him friendship or respect. Instead, he finds himself in the crosshairs of those who don't want to change in the established hierarchy. Ryan, disappointed that his plan to discredit Kang Ha has failed, decides to act more aggressively. He begins to rally those who are willing to support him against the new student, convincing them that Kang Ha is a threat to their privileges. Meanwhile, Kang Ha struggles to adapt to the strict rules of the school, where every action is viewed through the lens of class distinction. He realizes that he will need to gain not only trust but also respect in order to advance in his quest for the truth about his brother. However, this is difficult to do when his every move is scrutinized, and all of his accomplishments are attributed to luck or chance rather than his talent. Jeong Jae-i continues to watch Kang Ha from afar, admiring his calmness and independence. Her life of constant parental control seems like a cage from which she can't escape. Her every move is discussed in social circles, and any deviation from the ideal is perceived as weakness. Her father is a big businessman who has grandiose plans for her future and sees his daughter not as a person, but as a tool to strengthen his influence. Jeong Jae-i dreams of freedom, but doesn't know how to achieve it, afraid of losing everything she has. The relationship between Jeong Jae-i and Kang Ha gradually begins to develop. She looks to him for support and sees him as someone who can give her what she lacks, a sense of independence and sincerity. However, she is afraid to open up to him fully, knowing that her father would not approve of her sympathy for a mere student on scholarship. This internal conflict tears her apart, creating even more tension in her life. Ryan, meanwhile, decides to go further in his attempts to ruin Kang Ha's reputation. He turns the other influential students against him, spreading rumors that Kang Ha is not just a poor student, but someone who is deliberately trying to destroy their world. A wave of gossip begins at school, and Kang Ha faces a sharp deterioration in his relationship with his peers. Mutual suspicion, distrust, and envy make his life even more difficult. Kang Ha continues his research despite the obstacles and accidentally finds his brother's personal diary hidden in an old music room. In the entries, he discovers references to secret clubs and meetings held within the walls of the school, and hints that his brother was involved in dangerous games with the elite. These notes only fuel his desire to learn the truth, but also make him a target for those willing to go to any lengths to hide their secrets. As he delves deeper into the school's secrets, Kang Ha begins to realize that Jooshin High is not just an institution, but the center of a complex network of influence that encompasses not only the students but their families as well. The rich and powerful people who run this school actually control many aspects of the country, and the school's intrigues are just the tip of the iceberg. The more he learns, the more dangerous his situation becomes. Jeong, Jae-i's father, demands that she focus on her studies and stop any unnecessary relationships. He gives her an ultimatum: either she continues on the path he has chosen for her, or she loses everything. Jeong, Jae-i is faced with a difficult choice, but finds the courage to go against her father's wishes for the first time, even though it is not an easy decision. Her support for Kang Ha is not just an act of sympathy, but also the first step in her own liberation from the shackles of family expectations. After recent events, Kang Ha realizes that he is under the scrutiny of not only the students, but also the hidden power figures of the school. He realizes that his actions will now be judged by everyone and begins to exercise caution, especially after one of his new friends betrays him. Now he knows you can't trust anyone. At school, Kang Ha becomes a target for rumors and intrigue spread among the students. Ryan, eager to increase his power, prepares new attacks against Kang Ha, using all his influence and connections to ruin his rival's reputation. At this point, rumors begin to circulate that Kang Ha is allegedly involved in several unpleasant incidents designed to discredit him. The atmosphere around him becomes tense, and many of his classmates begin to question his true intentions. Jeong, Jae-i, who has recently been confident in her decision to go against her father's wishes, now faces new challenges. Her father finds ways to pressure her through school and restrict her freedom. He uses his connections with the school administration to keep his daughter under constant control. Jeong, Jae-i feels trapped, but her admiration for Kang Ha's determination pushes her to find strength in herself. She grows closer to him, but hesitates to open up completely, realizing that such a relationship could bring more problems. Despite her sympathy for Kang Ha, she remains cautious even though her feelings are growing stronger. At the same time, Ryan, disappointed that he was unable to undermine Kang Ha's reputation with his previous actions, changes tactics. Instead of attacking directly, he decides to operate from the shadows, creating more complex schemes. He attracts other influential students to his side by organizing a series of events designed to make Kang Ha look bad in front of his teachers and classmates. At this point, Kang Ha finds himself under a hail of accusations ranging from minor violations of school rules to false suspicions of violent behavior. The pressure from all sides is mounting, but he realizes that if he doesn't move forward with his investigation, his mission is in jeopardy. In parallel with these events, Kang Ha continues to delve into the mysteries surrounding his brother's past. He discovers documents in the school library that contain references to private meetings and secret clubs that his brother was involved in. However, the details are too vague and none of the former students want to talk about it. Teachers dodge questions, and the students from whom Kang Ha tries to learn more immediately shut down when they barely hear about his brother. He realizes that there's something much more serious behind this veil of silence. Meanwhile, Jeong, Jae-i is facing internal contradictions. Her sympathy for Kang Ha becomes more and more apparent, and she begins to look for ways to free herself from parental control. Her father continues to pressure her, but she decides to fight for her own interests for the first time in her life. With each passing day, her belief that Kang Ha is the man who can help her change her life grows stronger. However, she realizes that their relationship will be under scrutiny, and it scares her. Kang Ha, for his part, begins to notice that someone is watching his every move. He suspects that Ryan and his allies have not given up trying to thwart his plans. When Kang Ha returns to his room one day, he discovers that his belongings have been searched and important documents related to his investigation are missing. This becomes a signal to him someone in his inner circle is willing to go to any lengths to stop him. The betrayal of a former friend seems to be just the beginning. And now Kang Ha realizes that not only the students are watching him, but also those higher up in the school hierarchy. During one of his classes, Kang Ha meets a mysterious history teacher who he feels may be connected to events of the past. This teacher, however, behaves strangely. Every time the topic of Kang Ha's brother comes up, he avoids answering, as if afraid of revealing something. Kang Ha becomes even more insistent in his questions, but realizes that this man is being overly cautious. Perhaps he knows something important but is afraid of the consequences. Kang Ha decides to bide his time and be more tactful in his attempts to reveal the truth. The situation around Kang Ha continues to escalate. Ryan, seeing that his first attempts to eliminate the new student have failed, decides to go further. He begins to weave intricate plots involving other influential students and even some of the teachers. Kang Ha realizes that his every move is being watched and any mistake could be fatal. Jae-i's support gives him the strength to keep fighting, but it also puts her in a dangerous position. Both realize that their future and their lives are on the line. One night, in the dark hallway of the school, Kang Ha receives a note offering a meeting from an anonymous source. Alarmed but determined, he goes to the location. But instead of the expected meeting, he encounters a new trap. One of the influential students tries to frame him by organizing a scuffle that is meant to make him look like the aggressor. However, Kang Ha manages to avoid this by being cautious and savvy. He realizes that the trap was just a warning that his games with the elite are getting more and more dangerous. Meanwhile, Jae-i, in an effort to help Kang Ha, decides to use her position to find out who is behind this. She tries to find out through acquaintances and connections who might have been involved in the incidents with Kang Ha's brother, but every step she takes becomes more and more risky. Her father begins to notice his daughter's different behavior and insists that she stay away from scholarship students and unsuitable friends. However, Jae-i decides to disobey for the first time. She realizes that she can no longer live by the rules that others have set for her. Under the pressure of the events taking place, Kang Ha decides to act more rigidly. He finds the history teacher after class and directly demands answers about his brother. After much hesitation, the teacher agrees to tell more, but on the condition that it stays between them. He reveals that Kang Ha's brother was involved in informal meetings where important issues were discussed, not only concerning students but also their parents, including political and economic topics. These meetings were held under the patronage of several influential people who control not only the school but also a significant portion of society. This discovery becomes a pivotal moment for Kang Ha. He now knows that there is something much more behind his brother's death than the usual school intrigues. But he also realizes that if he keeps digging deeper, his life could be in danger. But nevertheless, he can no longer stop. Now his task is not only to find out the truth about his brother, but also to expose those who run the whole system. At the end of the day, Kang Ha and Jae-i meet in a secluded spot on the school grounds, where they both realize that they are on the verge of uncovering big secrets. Their relationship grows closer, but also more dangerous, as each new move could have unpredictable consequences. They decide that they will act together, despite all the risks, because they realize that they can't do it alone. Tensions continue to rise at Jooshin High. Kang Ha feels the ground beneath his feet becoming increasingly unstable, especially after his history teacher's revelations about the secret meetings his brother was involved in. Kang Ha now realizes that his investigation could lead to the uncovering of important secrets, not only of the school, but also of its influential students. However, despite realizing the danger, he decides not to stop and prepares to dig even deeper. Events begin to unfold with renewed vigor as Kang Ha faces another wave of hostility from the school's elite. Ryan, who continues to weave intrigue, decides to strike a more powerful blow against his adversary. He organizes a series of events designed to discredit Kang Ha in front of the entire school. Ryan uses his influence to organize false accusations against Kang Ha for alleged wrongdoing, and these accusations begin to spread among the students. His goal is to convince everyone that Kang Ha is not worthy of being a part of their world, even as a scholarship student. One night, Kang Ha learns that the school authorities are planning an assembly to discuss his latest infractions. He realizes that this may be his last chance to protect his reputation and continue his investigation, so he decides to attend the meeting. Before doing so, he meets with Jae-i, who tries to support him, but is also under a lot of pressure from her father. She increasingly feels that her relationship with Kang Ha is becoming dangerous for both him and herself. At the meeting, an unexpected twist occurs. One of the teachers who had previously taken a neutral stance suddenly sides with Kang Ha. The teacher points out the lack of evidence and demands that Kang Ha's case be postponed. This development surprises everyone present, especially Ryan, who didn't expect such resistance. Kang Ha realizes that there are people at the school willing to help him, but he doesn't understand why the teacher has so suddenly become his ally. This makes him wary because in the world of the elite, things rarely just happen. Meanwhile, Jae-i decides to find out more about her father and his connections to the influential families of the school. She suspects that her father may be involved in some dark deeds that she knows nothing about. To get to the bottom of it, she decides to break into his office and find documents that could shed light on his business and his relationship with the school's elite. Her actions become increasingly risky and she realizes she could be caught at any moment. At this time, Kang Ha begins to suspect that there is more behind Ryan's actions than just jealousy or a desire to crush a rival. He decides to keep an eye on Ryan and one day witnesses a strange meeting between him and a group of adults who clearly have influence over the school. Kang Ha can't hear what they're talking about, but realizes it's not just a meeting about school business. This only strengthens his resolve to investigate further and uncover the whole truth. Events escalate when Jae-i finds several documents in her father's study that confirm her worst suspicions. She learns that her father and his business associates are closely connected to the school's administration and have a direct influence on decisions regarding the students and their future. Moreover, one of the documents hints at her father's involvement in some kind of machinations related to the disappearance of Kang Ha's brother. Shocked by these revelations, she realizes that her father may not be who she thought he was, and that her own future depends on how she deals with this information. Not knowing who to confide in, Jae-i decides to tell Kang Ha, but this puts her in even greater danger. Her father may now suspect her of betrayal, and Kang Ha becomes an even bigger target for those who do anything to cover up their crimes. Kang Ha is beginning to see that his fight is becoming more and more dangerous, but he can't stop. He has no choice. The truth about his brother's death and his connection to the influential people of the school are now his only targets. He decides to confide in Jae-i, and together they begin to prepare a plan to expose everyone behind the machinations at Jooshin High. Kang Ha and Jae-i agree to meet in a secluded place, away from prying eyes. They feel that their plan is taking shape and hope to discuss their next steps. Kang Ha suddenly senses something strange on the way to the meeting. The feeling that he's being watched grows with every step. He looks around carefully, trying not to give away his uneasiness, but the feeling of danger persists. To avoid arousing suspicion, Kang Ha continues on his original ritual, pretending that everything is going according to plan. Inwardly tense, he carefully considers how to avoid the possible threat. His suspicions grow stronger, and he realizes that he must act. At a critical moment, just a few steps before the intended rendezvous point, he abruptly changes direction and takes a different path, hoping to confuse his pursuers. His maneuver is successful. Kang Ha realizes that the trap has been prepared in advance. His opponents are ready to use any opportunity to stop him. So this experience makes him realize how serious this is. The battle against the school's elite is just beginning, and the stakes are getting higher. His every action must be carefully considered, as danger lurks around every corner. When he meets Jae-i, they discuss what has happened. They both realize that their investigation has attracted unwanted attention from those who don't want the truth to come out. They realize that they are on a dangerous path where any careless move could lead to disaster. Nevertheless, they are determined to continue their actions despite the risks. Now their life at school is not what it used to be. They feel like they are on a chessboard, where every move must be precisely calibrated and mistakes can prove fatal. Despite all this, they decide not to back down, because too much is at stake, not only their future, but also the truth they are so desperate to uncover. After tense events, Kang Ha and Jae-i realize that their situation at Jooshin High is becoming increasingly dangerous. They now know that their steps are under constant surveillance. Every action can be used against them, and they must act more cautiously than ever before. The internal conflict between trust in each other and the fear that one of them might be the victim of manipulation gradually heats up their relationship. But nevertheless, they continue to join forces because they realize that separation will only weaken their position. Kang Ha decides that he needs to gather more information and starts looking into his brother's old connections. He learns of a former student at the school who might be able to shed light on the events that took place shortly before his brother's death. This former student, once popular but who mysteriously disappeared from school life a few years ago, is another mystery that Kang Ha is determined to solve. After a few contacts, he manages to arrange a meeting with him, but the encounter promises to be risky. At this time, Jae-i faces increasing pressure from her father. After learning that she continues to support Kang Ha, her father decides to control her more tightly. Her life becomes more and more like a golden cage. Any attempts to meet or talk to Kang Ha are closely monitored, and her access to personal funds and even her freedom of movement are severely restricted. Her father is increasingly insistent that she sever all ties with him and focus on family matters and her future role in the corporation. This situation intensifies Jae-i's internal conflict between her duty to her family and her desire for freedom. And at the same time, Ryan, seeing that Kang Ha has not only not given up, but is beginning to gather allies around him, decides to take more drastic measures. He calls together a group of his closest supporters to devise a new plan to eliminate Kang Ha from the school. His goal is not just to humiliate Kang Ha in front of the students, but to destroy his reputation and force him to leave Jooshin High. Ryan realizes that his power is in jeopardy and is not going to sit idly by. Ryan's plan involves a frame-up to make Kang Ha look guilty of stealing valuable information from the school archives. This information, which contains sensitive data about influential students and their families, is closely guarded, and its theft could lead to a scandal that would destroy everything Kang Ha has managed to build. Ryan organizes everything so that Kang Ha will be in the archive at just the right moment, and frames it as a hacking attempt. At the same time, Jae-i, unaware of Ryan's plans, happens to be near the scene and becomes an unwitting witness. On the eve of the setup, Kang Ha decides to confide in Jae-i and tells her about his plan to meet with a former student who can provide important information about his brother. They agree that Kang Ha will go to the meeting alone so as not to put her at risk. However, Jae-i realizes that the situation is becoming increasingly dangerous and finds a way to secretly observe his actions. She begins to sense that something is going wrong, and fears that Ryan might be up to something. And meanwhile, the meeting with a former student that Kang Ha had been counting on turns out to be an unexpected twist. This man, who at first seemed like a potential ally, finds himself deeply involved in a web of intrigue, and his loyalty is not as obvious as expected. The former student reveals that he was once part of the same group as Kang Ha's brother, but cut all ties to save himself. He reluctantly reveals that Kang Ha's brother played a dangerous game with powerful people that eventually led to his death, but he prefers not to reveal specific details, realizing that doing so could put his own life in danger. While Kang Ha is trying to figure out how to use the information, Jae-i finds evidence that her father may have been involved in the school's archives. She begins to question her parents' motives and their role in running the elite Jooshin High. It's clear to her now, her father is not just controlling her life, but also hiding his dirty deeds that could destroy their entire family. Her inner conflict reaches a peak, and she doesn't know what to do. Wow! Ryan has thought out every step of his setup, and his plan begins to materialize flawlessly. After meeting with his former student, Kang Ha returns to school, unaware of the trap that has already been set. On the grounds of the school archives, he is suddenly apprehended by the guards. Panic flashes through Kang Ha's mind when he is told that he is suspected of stealing confidential data. Nearby, the administration and security guards are searching the premises, allegedly discovering signs of a break-in. Kang Ha immediately realizes that it's all a setup, but can't believe that Ryan's plan has come to fruition so quickly. All the evidence against Kang Ha is carefully fabricated, the locks that have been picked, the documents that have suddenly disappeared, and the footprints he allegedly left behind when he stole them. He is forced to attend the search, making him feel trapped. His classmates, teachers, and even the school administration look at him with contempt and judgment. They are convinced of his guilt, and every step Kang Ha takes to defend himself seems to be in vain. His words convince no one. Only Jae-i knows the truth. She was an accidental witness to how Ryan and his accomplices were preparing this setup. She saw them discussing the details and thinking it through. Now she's faced with an agonizing choice. She realizes she can help Kang Ha, but that would mean openly opposing not only Ryan, but the entire school system, including her own family. Any action she takes could have huge repercussions. Young Jae-i realizes that if she decides to go against Ryan, it would be a serious blow to her relationship with her father. She has always been on the line between family duty and her own desires, but this moment is a turning point. If she doesn't side with Kang Ha now, she may never be able to trust herself or her sense of justice again. But the fear of losing her family, privilege, and protection weighs heavily on her shoulders. As events unfold, Kang Ha feels his time is running out. The accusations are mounting, and the administration is ready to take drastic measures. Isolation, mistrust from others, all of this could lead to his expulsion and, with it, destroy everything he came to the school for. He realizes that he needs to prove his innocence and uncover the truth before the doors are finally closed to him. But how can he do that when everyone is against him? Meanwhile, the injustice and lies that permeate the walls of the school become more and more apparent to Jae-i. She begins to realize the extent of corruption and how far powerful families are willing to go to maintain their status and power. Every day at Jooshin High seems more and more fake to her, and she can no longer turn a blind eye. Her sympathy for Kang Ha grows into the realization that his struggle is also a struggle for her own future, for the chance to be free from control and manipulation. As the theft case begins to gain momentum, Jae-i decides not to stay silent anymore. She realizes that her silence will only make the situation worse, and that Kang Ha may suffer for her inaction. She is ready to take the decisive step of standing up to her father, who is clearly involved in the conspiracy. She knows that if she comes forward with the truth, she may have to break up with her family forever. Now she's on the brink. One step in her life will change forever. But she can no longer let fear control her. Jae-i gathers all her willpower and decides to act. She's ready to tell the truth about what she saw and expose Rian and his accomplices. This is her chance to finally break free from family control and help Kang Ha deal with the injustice that has surrounded him. After the tense events of the previous episode, the situation for Kang Ha becomes critical. Accusations of data theft threaten his future at school, and the outlook seems bleak. Young Jae-i realizes that her silence is only making things worse, and her hesitation must end. She makes a firm decision to stand up against the entire system that has been pressuring her since she was a young girl. However, this decision entails many risks, and Young Jae-i has to go through one of the most difficult trials of her life. Kang Ha spends the night in complete anxiety. He realizes that everything is a setup, but he can't find a way to protect himself. His classmates shun him and his teachers look at him with judgment. Young Jae-i is the only one who can help him uncover the truth, but he's afraid to jeopardize it. Despite his heavy thoughts, Kang Ha decides not to give up. He has a goal to uncover the truth about his brother, and he won't back down even if everyone is against him. The next day, Young Jae-i decides to take a step that will change her life. She summons Ryan for a frank conversation. With cold determination, she looks him in the eye and bluntly tells him that she knows about his plans to frame Kang Ha. She warns him that if he doesn't back down, she will tell him the whole truth. However, Ryan isn't the type to give up easily. He looks at her with contempt, mocking her attempt to protect Kang Ha. He reminds her that her father is one of those who control the school, and that by speaking out against him, she'll jeopardize not only her reputation, but her family as well. So this revelation strikes Young Jae-i. Her inner conflict reaches a peak. The choice between duty to her family and justice seems impossible. She feels her world crumbling under the weight of this revelation. Ryan, seeing her hesitation, insists that she dare not go against her family and all those who support the system. He openly states that Kang Ha is just a pawn in their game, and if she doesn't stop trying to interfere, she'll end up in harm's way. Meanwhile, Kang Ha continues his investigation, hoping to find evidence that might prove his innocence. He remembers that his brother mentioned some documents that were kept in a special place. This gives him a new impetus for action. He starts looking for a secret place in the school's archives that would be logical for storing such important data. Despite the dangers, he decides to sneak in at night, relying on his luck and intuition. As Kang Ha prepares for his risky move, Young Jae-i makes a final decision. She can no longer tolerate the lies and manipulations that surround her life. Gathering all her willpower, she goes to her father to reveal to him the truth about what she knows. This conversation proves to be difficult and emotionally taxing. Young Jae-i's father first tries to silence her, claiming that she doesn't understand anything about school politics and family matters. He tells her that Kang Ha is only a temporary nuisance, and that the real issues are handled at a higher level that she is better off not knowing about. However, Young Jae-i no longer intends to keep quiet. She bluntly tells her father that she knows about his connection to Ryan and his machinations, and that her conscience will no longer allow her to turn a blind eye. The father is stunned at first, but then his expression changes. He realizes that his daughter is serious about turning against him, and this undermines his plans. He warns her that such an action could have disastrous consequences for the whole family, but Young Jae-i stands firm. She decides to cut all ties with this world that no longer aligns with her values. Meanwhile, Kang Ha sneaks into the school archives. His heart beats fast when he opens the door to the place his brother mentioned earlier. The archive holds many secrets, and Kang Ha finds old documents that he believes may shed light on the involvement of the school's elite in events that took place many years ago. Suddenly, a folder marked with dates that coincide with the time of his brother's death catches his attention. The documents inside the folder reveal shocking details. Kang Ha finds records of secret meetings organized by several powerful families, including the Ryan family. It turns out that Kang Ha's brother was involved in an attempt to expose the financial fraud associated with the group. These revelations confirm Kang Ha's worst suspicions. His brother was victimized by the elite, who wouldn't let him expose the truth. Kang Ha, shocked by the information he has received, realizes that his life is now in even greater danger. He knows that those involved in these machinations are willing to do anything to keep their secrets. But Kang Ha can no longer back down. With the documents in hand, he hurries to leave the archives, hoping they will help prove his innocence and expose the school's elite. However, on his way out, the guards are waiting for him. They are ordered to detain him, and Kang Ha realizes that he has been discovered. The situation seems hopeless, but suddenly Young Jae-i comes to the rescue. She shows up at the last moment, causing confusion among the guards. Kang Ha takes advantage of the moment and escapes. Young Jae-i does her best to divert the guards' attention, realizing that her moves are becoming increasingly risky. Now they both realize that there's no turning back. All bridges have been burned and their fight is just beginning. Kang Ha, With documents in hand and the support of Jae-i, is ready to continue exposing the school's elite. Their journey will be difficult and dangerous, but they decide to go all the way, realizing that only together will they be able to confront the entire system that has held them hostage. After a spectacular escape from the school's archives, Kang Ha and Jae-i realize that their lives are now in danger. The documents Kang Ha has found contain evidence about the machinations of powerful families, and now the elite will do anything to hide the truth. They have the evidence but realize that there is a long and dangerous road ahead to fairly expose those at the top of the school hierarchy. Kang Ha and Jae-i decide to proceed with caution. They look for a safe place where they can examine the documents in more detail. Kang Ha realizes that the information in these papers is not only related to his brother's murder, but could affect the entire top of society, including the big businessmen, politicians, and powerful people who control the school and much more outside of it. They soon realize that not only are they being persecuted, but they are also trying to destroy any trace of their investigation. Meanwhile, Ryan, realizing that his plan to take down Kang Ha has failed, begins to act more aggressively. He summons his supporters and begins to use his influence to clear his name and destroy Kang Ha. The whole school is filled with rumors that Kang Ha is doing scenes Anjing Junji. I was supposedly helping him. This undermines their reputation, but they stay true to their mission to uncover the truth. Jae-i, seeing that her name is also being dragged into this scandal, decides to talk to her father directly. She confronts him again, stating that she knows of his involvement in the machinations. Jae-i's father tries to convince her to shut up, claiming that her actions could destroy the entire family. He explains that many of the people involved are their business partners, and if the truth were to come out, it would not only hurt them, but her future as well. He tries to manipulate his daughter by playing on her feelings and her duty to her family. However, Jae-i is not the same person she used to be. She is no longer willing to tolerate lies and manipulation. Despite her fear of losing everything she has, she decides to fight for her freedom and the truth. She tells her father that she is going to support Kang Ha, and that she is now on the side of justice. The conversation ends on a high note of conflict. The father realizes that he is losing control over his daughter, and this leads to a new round of hostility between them. Meanwhile, Kang Ha begins to realize that their opponents will stop at nothing. He meets with his brother's former classmates, trying to gather more information. Some of them agree to help, but are afraid that they might get hurt. They share important details with Kang Ha that confirm Ryan and his family's involvement in a scam involving the use of school resources for illegal affairs. Jae-i and Kang Ha realize that it would be too dangerous for them to proceed alone. They decide to turn to the one teacher who once supported Kang Ha. This teacher, although neutral, has information that can help them bring the conspirators to light. The teacher agrees to help, but warns that the price for the truth may be too high. He points them to important connections between the school and influential people outside, showing how deep the roots of the problem are. Against this backdrop, the pressure on Kang Ha and Jae-i intensifies. Ryan, seeing his reputation and power cracking at the seams, begins to enlist his allies among the students and even some of the teachers. He convinces them that Kang Ha and Jae-i are intent on destroying their world, and offers his terms: help eliminate this threat in order to maintain the status quo. The whole of Jooshin High begins to buzz with rumors and intrigue, and the atmosphere at the school heats up. Kang Ha, meanwhile, realizes that he is running out of time. He decides to organize a public expose to bring the truth to the surface. Together with Jae-i, they devise a plan to gather everyone who is willing to support them and bring the documents found in the archive to a school assembly attended by students, teachers, and administrators. They realize that this step could lead to unpredictable consequences, but they can't wait any longer. Amidst the preparations for the reveal, Kang Ha begins to feel that he is being watched. Strange people show up at the school who don't look like normal teachers or security guards. This adds a new tension. It seems that the school's elite are willing to use any means to stop him. Jae-i, despite her fear, stays by his side. She realizes that there is no turning back. When the day of the assembly arrives, the school seems to freeze in anticipation. The assembly hall is filled to capacity with students, teachers, and administrators, all gathered to hear what Kang Ha and Jae-i have to say. Muffled whispers can be heard everywhere, but the atmosphere is tense, as if before a storm. No one knows what's in store for them, but everyone senses that it's something significant. Ryan, who is among the audience, is outwardly calm, his face expressing little emotion, but his eyes are full of menace. He's confident that he'll be able to thwart Kang Ha's attempts to reveal the truth, and he's ready for any eventuality. Kang Ha, standing on the stage with a folder in his hands, realizes that everything he's done up to this point has brought him to this point. All of his struggles, all of the sacrifices and dangers he has gone through now make sense. He knows that his words can change everything. There is tension all around, with Jae-i by his side, both of them realizing that there is no turning back. Kang Ha's heart is pounding, but he's determined not to back down. His gaze travels around the hall, meeting curious and wary faces. Then he takes a deep breath and begins to speak. Kang Ha's every word sounds clear and confident, his voice echoing in the spacious hall. She describes how the elite of the school use their position to manipulate the students, hide the truth, and control the lives of not only the school but also many families. Kang Ha details how the system was built on lies and corruption, how his brother who tried to expose these schemes fell victim to the system. As he tells his story, it becomes clear that most students and teachers had no idea how deeply rooted it all was. So stirring begins in the hall. Some students, realizing that they may have become part of this system themselves, begin to exchange surprised looks. The teachers glance over, sensing the changing mood in the hall. But Ryan and his allies are not about to sit idly by. Ryan rises from his seat, his face contorted with anger. He interrupts Kang Ha, trying to accuse him of slander and discredit him in front of everyone. He loudly proclaims that Kang Ha is just a jealous scholarship kid who wants to destroy a world he himself has no right to belong to. But Kang Ha doesn't stop there. His voice grows even more confident. He knows he has more than just words now, he has proof. He opens the folder he's been holding and begins to show the audience the documents that incriminate the elite and the fraud. Dead silence reigns in the hall, every eye fixed on the stage. The students and teachers listen with bated breath as Kang Ha reads out the documents, financial reports, minutes of closed meetings, and the names of those involved in the dirtiest cases. The documents prove the involvement of not only Ryan, but also his family and other influential parents. Now no one could deny the obvious. A silence hung in the hall, tense, almost unbearable. Ryan, standing in the center of attention, can't believe his eyes. He tries to object, but his words are drowned in the general atmosphere of disbelief and shock. His allies are also starting to feel the pressure, realizing that the truth is coming out and their reputations are at risk. Jae-i, standing next to Kang Ha, feels her heart quicken. This moment will change everything forever. She realizes that her steps towards the truth have set off a chain of events that can no longer be stopped. There is no more fear, only determination to see it through. She realizes that this day will be a turning point not only for her and Kang Ha, but for everyone who has ever been involved in the conspiracy or subjugated to the system to which they have all been subjected. When Kang Ha finishes her story, there is still dead silence in the hall. No one moves. This is the moment of truth. Everyone now knows that the school they thought was a place of power and privilege was actually steeped in lies and manipulation. Kang Ha and Jae-i look at each other, realizing that their battle is not over. However, this move is their victory. They've exposed the system, and now it's up to the others to react to the truth. The day after the shocking assembly at Jooshin High arrives, echoes of the revelations revealed by Kang Ha and Jae-i continue to spread through the hallways. The school's abuzz with rumors, whispers, distrust. The atmosphere is changing, and it's clear that the machinations hidden under the cloak of privilege will no longer remain a secret. For the protagonists, however, this is only the beginning of the battle. They know that the confrontation with the elite will not end in exposure. Those they have brought to light have too much power to simply accept defeat. After the meeting, Kang Ha and Jae-i feel under the gun. They realize that their actions have put them in a dangerous position. The documents that were presented at the meeting prove the involvement of several powerful families in the scam. But this is just the tip of the iceberg. Kang Ha realizes that without outside support, they risk falling victim to larger forces. He decides to reach out to those who can help bring this truth to a higher level, such as the press or outside government organizations, to stop the pressure that is building up around them. Meanwhile, Ryan and his supporters realize that their status is under threat. Realizing that their methods of managing the situation are no longer working, they decide to go on the offensive, using harsher measures to silence Kang Ha and Jae-i for good. They mobilize all of their allies inside and outside the school to destroy any evidence and eliminate the influence that Kang Ha and Jae-i have gained. One key moment comes when Jae-i notices that her father is beginning to take aggressive steps to preserve his reputation. After she publicly confronts him, he no longer sees her as his heiress to control. He now sees her as a threat to their entire family. Jae-i's father convenes an emergency meeting with school board members and other parents to discuss how to minimize the damage of what happened. For him, the family's reputation comes first, and he is willing to sacrifice his daughter if it will help save their situation. Jae-i, feeling this pressure, realizes that she is now left without family support. For the first time in her life, she realizes that her past and everything she relied on is gone. However, instead of fear, she experiences a sense of freedom. She now acts independently and is willing to fight to the end for the truth, even if she has to sever all ties with her parents and their world. Meanwhile, Kang Ha begins to develop a plan to get outside the school with exposure. He realizes that if the story stays inside Jooshin High, the elite will do everything they can to cover up the scandal. He begins to seek out contacts with journalists and members of the media who can cover the machinations and bring the case to a level where the elite can't cover everything up. However, this action is also dangerous. The more people know the truth, the more likely it is that Kang Ha and Jae-i could be targeted. At the same time, Rian decides to use his remaining resources to hit Kang Ha's most vulnerable point, his brother. He bribes several of Kang Ha's brother's former friends to start spreading false rumors about him. These rumors are meant to destroy Kang Ha's entire reputation as a man who strives for the truth. Ryan wants to portray him as a vindictive brother who is just using the situation for his own ends, not for justice. Kang Ha learns of Ryan's new attacks and realizes that the feud is reaching a new level. His brother has always been a source of inspiration and a symbol of justice for him, and now that his name is being besmirched, Kang Ha realizes that he must not only defend his cause but also his brother's honor. He decides to find more evidence to bring Ryan and his family to justice. Meanwhile, the school begins to split into two camps. Some students support Kang Ha and Jae-i, admiring their courage and determination to fight against the system. Others, especially those connected to the elite, side with Ryan, claiming that this is all just an attempt to destroy their privileged world. So school becomes an arena of open conflict, and the atmosphere heats up to the breaking point. So teachers and administration can no longer ignore what is happening, and some of them begin to question their loyalty to the school's leadership. One evening, as Kang Ha and Jae are discussing their next steps, they receive a message from a student who is willing to provide important information. This student, who had previously supported Ryan, unexpectedly offers to help, saying that he can no longer tolerate the lies and pressure from the elite. He tells them about a secret meeting to take place in a few days, where the influential parents plan to discuss how to cover up the scandal. This gives Kang Ha and Jae-i a chance to strike a decisive blow. For realizing that this is their only chance to expose the truth, they begin to prepare for the meeting. Jae-i decides to use his knowledge of the elite to infiltrate the meeting as a proxy. Kang Ha, on the other hand, remains in the shadows, ready to act when the time comes. So this operation could be his last chance to prove his case and bring the culprits to justice. Kang Ha and Jae-i are able to uncover the truth about the machinations of Jooshin High's elite. After Jae-i secretly recorded all the key statements in a secret meeting, they handed over the evidence to journalists and representatives of outside organizations. Through the collected documents and testimonies, the truth about the corruption and illegal affairs of the powerful families running the school was made public. The revelation caused a huge public outcry. Influential parents and members of the school's elite were forced to back down under public and legal pressure. Investigations began with significant consequences. School leaders and implicated families lost their power and many were prosecuted. Jooshin High, formerly a symbol of privilege and corruption, now stood on the threshold of radical change. Kang Ha and Jae-i emerged victorious from this struggle, despite all the trials. They not only succeeded in clearing Kang Ha's brother's name, but also in changing the order of the school. Jae-i finally broke away from her father and his world of lies and manipulation and chose the path of truth and freedom. They both became symbols of resistance to the system and fighters for justice.